Hi, welcome back on my channel where we experiment CG workflows to make cool art. Today's video is a little bit different though. I want to answer some of the frequently asked questions I receive in my DMs, on my emails, etc. So yeah, I guess if you have some general question about the industry, I will try to answer in this video. So for those who doesn't know me, I am Adrien Lambert. I'm a French VFX artist and I've been working in VFX and movies for the past 9-10 years or so. So yeah, at the moment I occupy a position as a CG generalist environment supervisor at DNEG. So I'm very new to this job actually. It's like my second week, literally. And yeah, that's all exciting. So today I want to answer your question and yeah, we're gonna dive into this. So one question that I kind of feel that you were asking a lot was, I would love to know if Houdini students easily find a job after school. What are the salaries expectation for junior? Well, yeah, legit question, I guess. And the first thing I want to flag is that if you brand yourself as a Houdini artist, you may want to rethink that for a bit, because the problem I have with that is that you are branding yourself on a software and not a skill. And as you know, well, you can do so many things in Houdini. You can do procedural modeling, animation, well, like mocap and stuff. You can do dynamics, you can do grooming. So it's very hard for a recruiter to get an idea what are the skills if you brand yourself Houdini artist. So that's the thing I want to mention here. And if you're working on environment in Houdini, well, you can still say environment Houdini artist. Well, we'll come back to that later. There is a question related to that anyway. But yeah, that's my main take on that. And to answer this question, I would say it's pretty easy to find a job if you know Houdini, because a lot of companies are shifting to Houdini, whatever the discipline. I feel like it's gonna be used more and more. And that's also why you need to be more specific about your branding. Yeah, otherwise, when it comes to salaries, that's a kind of tricky question that I can't quite answer, because it depends on you where you live. If you live in UK, if you live in Eastern Europe, in Canada, even sometimes between Montreal and Vancouver, there can be some discrepancies in terms of salary. So that's kind of difficult for me to answer this question without knowing where you live. So we might do another video about salaries and stuff. It's interesting, I guess, and it's a pretty important topic, that's for sure. So another question we have is, as a Houdini user, can this software alone be my main tool if I'd want to be an environment artist? Or would you recommend to pick up Maya or another 3D package first and use Houdini as a secondary tool? All right, well, that's a very good question. And I feel like in the industry, there is a kind of shift happening where companies are seeing the potential of Houdini and trying to establish a pipeline, not just for environment, but for everything to be rendered in the end in maybe Houdini, Solaris, RenderMan, etc. So yeah, there's definitely an interest in learning Houdini. That can be for asset creation as well. It's always useful to be able to do height field, procedural modeling, especially for environments. You want to be versatile, so I would recommend having some Houdini skills, definitely super valuable. That being said, if you want to get a job in the industry as an environment artist, you must be able to show that you are able to create photorealistic images. Whatever it's in Houdini, Cloris, 3ds Max, Maya, as long as you prove that you can do that, well, skills are transferable, and I'm sure that whatever teams you are working with will help you to kind of pick up the rest of the pipeline, whether it's in 3ds Max, Cloris, or whatever. In most companies, we know that you can't know everything. You can't necessarily know, especially after school, know 3ds Max, Maya, Cloris, Houdini. That's just too much to learn, and that will come with time. then again, it's more about the art and what you do with it that matters. So a second question that's kind of related to that actually. So could you tell me how a junior generalist should plan their career? Is it hard just to get a generalist job in the first 2 years? Most people start from matte painter, texture lighter. Which side of skill is more important? Yeah, I mean, that's a very legit question, and there are not that many information out there about that, so I understand that can be tricky to know how to become generalist. So how to plan the career? As I was saying, if you want to get a job as generalist, I would say showing that you can do some environments with any software. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but as long as the environment are realistic and you want to get into movies, that's what matters most. Those skills are transferable, as I was saying, and people will help you getting knowledge on software and stuff like that. So that's not a big deal. Now, that's a very good question. Which skill to prioritize? I would say that content creation might be, well, it's important, of course, but that being said, most companies also have modelers and texture people that will handle that. So I would say that if you emphasize skills on layout, lighting, composition, set dressing, this kind of thing is what matter most for generalists. So you could totally buy some online models, use Megascans or free models, whatever you want. And if you can show that you make something that looks realistic with a nice lighting, good composition, that kind of thing, that's what matter most. So yeah, for generalists, scattering is a big deal, like scattering forest, scattering debris. Scattering can be the main task sometimes as a generalist, but also being able to use some other components for effects like VDB, which is like some kind of smoke element that you can use to enhance your composition, like adding clouds, adding some smoke on the building, things like that. That's the kind of thing that you want to be able to do as a generalist. The asset creation part, I think it's great to have it. It's fundamentally not the most important, I would say, nowadays, because you would have other departments, you can have some resource to help on that. So yeah, I would rather put emphasis on layout, lighting, set dressing. And when it comes to matte painting, it's always great to have those skills, obviously, but know that traditional matte painting is less and less used. Like you wouldn't make a full shot but with a matte painting. Now you would use it to enhance some bits here and there, maybe for sky painting, this kind of thing, enhance some parts of the CGs that look weak, this kind of stuff. But definitely matte painting is also a good skill to have. So actually, let me show you a profile of an artist I particularly find interesting for environment and the kind of thing you could aim for, basically. So Seunghee Seo, I had the chance to work with her at ILM, and what I really like about her ArtStation is that she's not trying to do some crazy concept here. She's mostly trying to do something pretty based on what exists. Like we have this mushroom stuff, it's a nice close-up, it shows that you can do scattering with some subtle little mushroom moss stuff, so you have different kind of flavor in the shot. You have some lookDev that can look pretty complex with some emission in the mushroom, so some kind of basic modeling. So I really like it, it's totally holding up. I would say if you look closely, well, it's not 100% perfect, but it's still very cool, and she's doing that in her free time, so kudos to her. I mean, it's really awesome work, and that's the type of thing that you want to be able as generalist. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but try to execute something that looks realistic and make it look pretty. So yeah, check it out. She has more work, like here she has like some kind of breakdown from a canyon. So yeah, great work in Clarice as well. yeah, see a bit of the breakdown. So that kind of give you the type of thing that you would need to do as generalist, creating some height field, creating some maybe procedural model, or sculpting some model of cliff, being able to scatter vegetation, do the lighting and the lookDev. And for that, she's actually showing her reference. And basing your work on reference will get you a long way, because you're not trying to concept yourself, you're basing your work on what exists, and it's already complicated enough to do something that looks realistic. If you are starting from a shitty concept, that's not gonna help at all. Advantage of real world, you can find bunch of photography reference. If you live just next to some place that looks particularly amazing, well, you can just try to recreate it. And that's a very smart move from her, actually. That's brilliantly executed. And same from here, she's like doing a breakdown of New York and how she tried to replicate New York from this angle with Central Park, the different buildings and stuff. So yeah, then again, based on real world photography reference stuff. So that's the best way you can actually learn at being an environment artist, is just to study the world, really. So yeah, definitely check out her profile, because if you're doing something similar, there's a high chance I just take you in my team at DNEG and work on some cool projects. Okay, one other question. Would you recommend art school in 2022? I have been thinking in going into one, and is it worth in comparison to self-learning? Well, yeah, that's a question that come back pretty often in my DMs, and it's kind of tricky to answer because I have been into school in 2021, and with COVID and all that stuff, I don't know how things change, if you still have physical classes or if it's all online. So on that side, it's kind of tricky for me to answer. So myself, I did 4 years of study at Artefacts Montpellier. I graduated in 2013, and I really don't regret doing this school. Now, it was a different time, I must say. There was less resource than what you can have here on internet. There are a lot of free resource, course and trainings, things like that. So time kind of changed since. I must say I really enjoy my experience in school, because it's great to evolve with people that are growing with you, and sharing and seeing their progress is really awesome. And just for the human experience of it is always pretty cool. I mean, it's much better than being alone on your side and like geeking all night and days. So yeah, that's, I would say, the human experience is pretty interesting to me. When it comes to what you can learn, I feel like now you can get a very strong knowledge just by looking on stuff online. Then again, it doesn't mean that you will be super efficient in production. I tend to think that school puts you in a production context, especially if you have to create a demo reel or a graduation short film. I feel like it's the best because you have a deadline, you have this short film to make, and you have a lot of planning to do, and you have to go through all these steps. So it really helps you to get more mature on this side. And when you leave school, well, you have pretty realistic expectation on how a production work and dealing with deadlines and that kind of thing. So in that way, I feel it's still very valuable to go through a school. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on this topic. So next question, how did you make your first reel? Well, as I was saying, I was at school, so I actually had a graduation short film ready, and I would basically make a showreel out of this project and some other project I was working on the side, like more like personal projects kind of things, or some work studies with the school maybe. So yeah, I was able to build a showreel fairly quickly thanks to that. How do you deal with not being able to finish a project? I always feel really bad when I don't finish a project. I usually proceed then with another project, but it still feels like failing. I don't know if you even experience that feeling, but how do you overcome it? Well, that's a question that I feel like a lot of artists are asking themselves. And the truth is failing is perfectly fine because it's part of the learning. And sometimes, yeah, I do feel bad sometimes because I'm like starting 10 things at the same time and nothing get done. And yeah, well, it is what it is, but I have to say that it's not a bad thing. Whatever you think, you are trying to put the effort into making something. So first, congratulations on that. It's not everybody that's actually trying to work on developing skills. So I feel like you should thank yourself for giving yourself the opportunity to grow. So don't be too harsh on yourself. And I would say that failing is part of learning, and that's how you learn the most, actually. And it's kind of fine. I mean, you can always come back on this project later. It often happens to me where I get stuck at some point because creatively I don't know where I'm going, or I don't know technically some things, and that's fine. You can give yourself a break, try to find some other inspiration, and you will come back with a fresh eye and overcome whatever you were trying to do. So on that side, I feel there is no wrong way to approach learning as long as you're trying. If you just watch tutorials, I mean, that's okay, but actually trying to do something out of it is the best way to learn. And even if you fail, that's still a better experience than not trying at all. I think that's pretty much it for today. If you have more questions, feel free to ask in comments, Instagram, or emails, whatever. I will try to answer. I usually try. Sometimes it's kind of hard because I'm in the middle of something and then I totally forget. That being said, if you want to apply as an environment artist and you are considering DNEG, well, feel free to contact me, send me your portfolio or showreel. I will try to give you some feedback, and if it's good enough, I can also pass your information to HR and HOD. So we are looking for all type of level in generalist, like junior, mid, senior. So always welcome to message me. Otherwise, I hope this video was useful. So take care, and I'll see you guys next time.